Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me. I'm Jim Rogers, and this is Thoughts from the Field, a weekly series for architecture, engineering, and construction management professionals. All right, thanks for joining me, everybody. We're going to get started this morning. This is a great new platform for me here on LinkedIn. I'm an instructor on LinkedIn Learning, and I've got quite a few courses on LinkedIn Learning, just to kind of show you what's out there. LinkedIn Learning, if you're watching this stream on something other than LinkedIn, is a great platform for finding courses on probably anything you could possibly be looking for. My little piece of the library happens to be construction management. And as you can see, I've got a lot of construction management, construction safety courses in there. The course that I'm really excited about released this week, and it's what we're going to be talking about today here in this live stream, and that is this course on facilities management and returning to the workplace post-COVID. So before we jump into that main topic, one of the things that's really cool about this live stream platform, and again, very different for me as an instructor on LinkedIn Learning, when I create a course, I've got to plan a lot of things in advance, and it stays static and releases a few months after we plan and film it and everything. And this new live platform that we're slowly introducing to LinkedIn and LinkedIn Learning allows us to kind of talk about some more timely events and some things that are current and new. So that's what I want to start this with today. I've been posting on LinkedIn about kind of the confusion that we've been having here in the US between the CDC and OSHA. We're out there trying to encourage everybody to get vaccines, and I've posted several times, gotten a lot of comments back about how OSHA came out and directed all employers in the US that if they required their employees to get vaccinated and those employees had a reaction, maybe had to go home sick for a day like I did, they would have to record that incident as a recordable incident in their OSHA 300 log. Really had everybody in an uproar. So kind of excited here to show you today. This is an article in Engineering News Record that they published just a couple of days ago. So earlier this week, OSHA came out and corrected themselves, in my opinion, corrected themselves. The guidance should have never been given in the first place. What they're saying now is they'll put a year or so, whatever that means, a year or so moratorium on requiring employers to record COVID vaccine reactions as recordable incidents. So that guidance is now off the table. You no longer have to do that. If you're an employer, you can require the vaccine, encourage the vaccine. If somebody has a reaction to it, it's no longer a recordable incident in your OSHA 300 log. That's been a big controversy in the industry for about the last 2 weeks. So I wanted to make sure we got that out to everybody as a nice current event. Another current event that I wanted to show you is actually just that. It's an event called World of Concrete, and I can put that up on the screen here. So World of Concrete is an event that I've been attending for probably at least a couple of decades. I've gone every year. It's a huge trade show. It's in Las Vegas, has been in Las Vegas for the last 10 years or so. And of course, didn't get to hold it last year, or actually it was held last year before the pandemic lockdown. Typically it would be held in January of every year. They didn't get to hold it in January of this year, but instead of canceling it or making it virtual, they did push it to June. So World of Concrete this year will be held June 7th through the 10th in Las Vegas at the Las Vegas Convention Center. It'll be held in the new wing of the Las Vegas Convention Center, so we'll get to see that new construction. And it's kind of interesting because it's probably one of the first mega events that we've seen being held since the pandemic and since everybody's been on lockdown and kind of had the lockdown restrictions eased up. So kind of excited to attend that event, kind of a little bit nervous. I'm not a person that typically likes crowds anyway. And Typically, World of Concrete has generated about 60 to 80,000 attendees. I'm being told this year, because of the combination of people being concerned about travel, probably a lack of international travelers, and just the fact that this is really the industry's first big event since the pandemic, probably this is going to be more like 20,000 attendees, but still a great big event. So looking forward to that, because that's on a Wednesday and because that's when I broadcast this. I'll actually in 2 weeks then be broadcasting somehow live from World of Concrete. I haven't quite figured that out yet, but I'll try and show you some of the things that are going on there. One of the things that I'm really excited about as far as World of Concrete that actually has nothing to do with the trade show itself is the fact that the new Boring Company tunnel is open. So I'm showing you a video of the inside one of the stations for the Boring Company tunnels at the Las Vegas Convention Center. And this will be the first time during World of Concrete that this new transportation system has been open to the public. Some of the news media, members of the news media and different groups have been allowed to go through this tunnel. And as you can see, you're riding Teslas through these tunnels, and the media, ironically, has dubbed them as very boring. That's fine, boring companies by the Boring Company. And I think that's just fine. As a construction professional, as somebody in the construction industry, I'm just really excited to see this tunnel that's 1.7 miles long. It has 3 or 4 stations. It was all done very, very rapidly using some tunneling technology that we've really never used or seen in the construction industry. And it was done at the fraction of the cost that a tunnel would normally be constructed at. So really excited to see the Boring Company's tunnel in Las Vegas. I'm going to be disappointed if it's not open. If it's not open, somebody from the Boring Company is going to have to come give me a private tour or something, because I'm really more excited about this than I am World of Concrete. Nonetheless, we'll be reporting from World of Concrete live in about 2 weeks. All right, moving along. One of the things that we saw happen during the pandemic and throughout 2020 is really a drop or decline in construction. Now, I'll tell you, I didn't see that in my area, in my region of the U.S. We were considered to be essential businesses. Construction was an essential business, and both myself and my clients, my construction industry clients, for the most part, continued to operate throughout the pandemic, kind of on a modified basis and a lot more work from home than we're used to. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. But in a lot of the areas of the world, construction saw a big decline during the pandemic. I wanted to show you the Engineering News Records construction activity rates, because I think this is really promising. What we're seeing here is the first quarter of 2021. Actually, starting in the fourth quarter of 2020, we started to see a big turnaround in construction activity rates. And then first quarter of 2021, you can see all regions, even including the Middle East and Africa, which had really been down for the last year, we're starting to see construction really come back in those areas, which is exciting. But I also think it makes people a little nervous, because we've all been locked down for the last 15 months or so, and now we're being asked to return to work. So that's what I want to talk about. That's what I want to spend the bulk of the time talking about here for the rest of this live stream. And by the way, I've got the comments pulled up here. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop those into the chat. I'll see those pop up, and I'll try and address those as much as I can. All right. So let's get started talking about this return to work topic. And to do that, I want to start out by saying I noticed one of the trending topics from the LinkedIn news editors yesterday was the fact that for many people, they find this whole return to the physical workplace a little strange because in the construction industry, many of us never really left the physical workplace. So certainly for those frontline workers, our tradespeople, our superintendents, our on-site project management professionals, many of them have continued working and continued to report to the job site all day, every day throughout the pandemic. Again, particularly in areas like mine, where construction was deemed essential. Again, I have clients that do a lot of work on healthcare facilities and hospitals, and all of that construction really has not slowed for me in my area for the last 15 months. But for a lot of people, and I know we look at India, who is in a little bit different phase of the pandemic than maybe we are in the U.S. So they're certainly where we were about this time last summer. And I'm getting a lot of posts and a lot of questions from people saying, hey, you mentioned a year ago that construction was deemed essential in your area. Do you think it's safe for construction workers to continue to work out on these job sites? And should we be doing that to keep the economy going, or should we be sending these people home? So what I thought I would do here to start this out is share some of the resources that I used, and some that I helped create, and some that I really saw the industry use, again, about this time last year, as construction industry in our area continued to work. So let me see if I can pull up a couple of these resources. First is from AGC, or the Associated General Contractors of America. If you're in the U.S., you're probably very familiar with AGC. AGC really partnered with the construction industry 15 months ago as we saw this pandemic hit, and we saw people and industries being closed and people being locked down. The construction industry, I think, was really on the forefront of coming together, as partners, as competitors, just as an entire industry coming together to figure out what we could do to continue to operate safely. A lot of those resources are here at agc.org/coronavirus. They're not featured real prominently on their website anymore because we're in a little different phase of the pandemic, I think, in most of the US than some of the other parts of the world. But if you're in another part of the world and you need some resources to help you determine if and how you should continue operating your construction sites, agc.org/coronavirus is a good place to go. I will also at some point here drop into the chat a link to this PDF template. This template, if you scroll through it, has places for you to kind of insert your own company information and your own options. And this template really formed the backbone of what I think a lot of construction companies in the U.S. or in my area of the U.S. Enacted. A lot of these policies that were enacted to keep workers safe. And I will tell you that following the rules in this template that I showed you really, in my opinion, helped keep workers safe. We have spent the last 15 months operating construction sites. We've implemented things like temperature checks, limiting the people that are allowed on job sites. So no more sales calls, no more rental companies coming out to see what we're doing. Really tried to tell trade partners that have superintendents who travel from job to job to really kind of limit those kinds of activities. So we're not moving people from, maybe one spot to another spot and spreading disease that way. We've had all our construction employees in face coverings for the last 15 months. And believe me, in my area in the summer, it gets to be 110, 115 degrees. It's not comfortable. It's no fun. But I can tell you it was effective. We did not see construction sites in the news as COVID hotspots. We really limited exposure. We kept our employees working, and we kept that portion of the economy moving. And I think the industry really did a good job of that. So if you're in a part of the world where you're not where maybe we are, and again, India is a perfect example of seeing these surges, getting a lot of questions about what should we do with construction projects. There's some resources for you. See if I can throw a couple of comments in here. This one from Anthony. We still have to wear a mask only when indoors and staying 6 feet apart, but outside no mask is needed unless less than 6 feet. And so that's kind of where we are now, right? So in the U.S., we've got really high rates of vaccinations. We're seeing COVID cases drop. The CDC has released guidance for vaccinated people saying, you don't need to wear masks. Vaccinated people don't need to wear masks. We've still got a lot of issues with determining who's vaccinated and who's not. But that's where this whole return to the workplace thing, I think, comes in. So even though I know a lot of the construction industry continued to work out there in the field, again, certainly with the trade partners who have continued to show up every single day for the last 15 months and work out there and kind of endure temperature checks every day and questionnaires every day and facial coverings every day. You all have continued to work and just done a phenomenal job. But I think you all have taught us some lessons that I think we can carry over, many industries can carry over from some of the things that we've done in the field. So one of the things that really stood out to me in the field is that the field management really worked quickly to limit the number of people in any one area. So, in construction, we tend to call that trade stacking, and that's a bad thing even when we're not in the middle of a pandemic, and it just means that I've probably got too many trades working in one area, and that results in a lot of things. It results in less safe work practices. It lowers productivity, and then certainly during pandemic, we just don't want that many people in one area on a construction site. So what I really saw is construction management personnel really coming together and rapidly adopting some things that maybe they'd looked at and had considered but hadn't actually implemented yet. For instance, in this case, lean productivity methods or lean construction scheduling methods, where we really pulled the trades together and said, okay, how can we start to be more reliable in where you're going to work every day and how much you're going to accomplish every day so that we can schedule everybody better? We want you to be more productive. We want you to be safer. And, during the pandemic, we really want to make sure that we don't have people working in close proximity with each other. How can we do that? I think the construction industry was very effective in doing that, and in really maximizing the operations going on throughout a project so that we could continue the pace of a project while still spreading people out. Now, some of the things that we did to make that work in construction, I think I saw some job sites go to 24-hour shifts, not to speed things up, but to allow fewer trades on the site at one time. So, one group of trades would come in and work in the day shift, and then we'd have a second group come in the night shift and kind of progress that way. We also really saw a lot of effort being placed in scheduling things like breaks, and actually building lunchrooms and break rooms and more sanitary restroom facilities other than the porta-johns that we normally see out on a construction site. And that was very effective in making sure everybody was able to stay clean, stay sanitary, go to a designated lunch or break area and eat, in peace and be able to stay spread out from everybody else. And one of the things that had to happen to do that was, typically on a construction site, everybody comes down and takes a break at the same time. Well, we had to stop that. We really had to stagger the breaks amongst the trades to make sure that we were able to space people out in the lunch facilities. And some of these things, I think, really can be lessons learned, and really can be things that we carry over to the office environment. So I've been talking about those tradespeople who have continued to work, but also we have architects, we have engineers, lots of people on the design side of things, and then we have our construction management professionals, our estimators, our pre-con people, even our project engineers, a lot of whom were sent home at the beginning of the pandemic and as things shut down and locked down, and were told to do their best to work from home. I've seen some great success in the AEC, the architecture, engineering, and construction industries, with this. We've seen a rapid adoption of some of the construction management platforms and collaboration tools that are out there, again, that maybe a lot of construction companies have looked at and considered or dabbled in, but hadn't really wholesale adopted. This pandemic forced the adoption of some of that technology. So I've seen a lot more companies using, software like PlanGrid and FieldWire to collaborate on their construction drawings and ensure that construction drawings are in everybody's hands digitally and up to date, rather than having to continually run those paper drawings out to the field and having more people exposed to each other. That's been really, I think, a big success, and I think the use of some of those programs has really ramped up during the pandemic, and we've seen some new ones. I do some work for Bosch Tools. Bosch has a platform called Refine My Site that is a digital lean scheduling tool that kind of takes, if you're familiar with lean scheduling, it takes the whiteboard that's normally in the construction trailer with all the sticky notes up there that represents the lean schedule, the pull plan schedule, and it digitizes that and puts it in everybody's hands. So now I can see what I'm supposed to be doing today and tomorrow and throughout the week without having to go down into the trailer. Again, I've improved productivity, because I don't have to stop and go down off the job site and go into the trailer. And I keep that separation, and I don't put a bunch of people in the job trailer. So, back to what we can do with some of the professionals like project engineers and pre-con people, again, who in many cases have been working from home. I know a lot of you would like to stay working from home, right? So we've seen a lot of surveys on LinkedIn. I've done a couple on LinkedIn that have gotten a lot of responses. McKinsey & Company is a group that I follow that's done a lot of surveys of people, of employees, and asked them, what is it that you want to do as we see some of the restrictions easing and hopefully see a light at the end of the tunnel during this pandemic? Do you want to just go back to work? Do you want to just stay working from home, or do you want some hybrid model? And interestingly enough, I think the numbers sit at about 10%. Only about 10% of the people just say, no, I want to go back to work. I want to go back to the office. There's about 30% that say, well, I only want to go back part-time. I want some sort of, there's about 30% that say, no, I don't want to go back at all. I just want to keep working from home. I feel like I'm productive from home. It allows me a lot more flexibility, and I want to stay working from home. And then there's about 60% that say, well, I want to do both. I want the flexibility of a hybrid model. I want to be able to go in a couple of days a week. I want to be able to work from home a couple of days a week. And if we look at this and apply it to the AEC industry, we see a few different challenges there, right? So I have people like project engineers who would typically work out at a construction site full time. Now, a lot of their activity would be at their desk in the construction office, processing submittals, processing RFIs, looking at change orders, processing plan revisions, but they would be there at the job site. And the advantage of that is they're physically located where the work's happening. And so if somebody has a question, they can just pop in and ask. And it's been a little challenging with this type of person working from home to ask the questions and get that kind of response that we need. So, the surveys, again, from employees have shown that, very small percentage, only 10% just say, no, we need to go back. On the other hand, the surveys from employers, the surveys of employers, managers, people that run large corporations, really have started to say, no, we've had enough. We were concerned about productivity of people that work from home. We're concerned that we're losing our corporate culture, from having people co-located in one space. We're losing that instantaneous collaboration that happens when people, meet in the halls or in the construction trailer, and we don't want to lose that. So as restrictions ease, we're going to order people back to work. So we see, two completely opposite ends of the spectrum. Maybe not unsurprisingly, employees mostly want to continue working from home or have some hybrid option. Employers want everybody back because they feel like they're losing part of their corporate identity. So give me just a minute, and I'd like to look through the comments here and see, I'd like to hear from you all also in the comments. What have your employers been telling you is going to happen within the next 30 days? Are they telling you you're going to have to come back to the office? Are they telling you you're going to be able to work from home? And what do you want to see? So we've got another one here from Anthony. It looks like probably from Bechtel. Obviously very large worldwide construction organization. Bechtel's offering $100 if we get the vaccination. They're actually doing some in-house vaccine clinics. I think that is probably a really good way to facilitate getting back to the physical work environment. The vaccine's available now. It wasn't available this time last year, and we had to keep everybody distanced to control the pandemic. Right now, the vaccine is available. I know there's a lot of discussion about, should I get the vaccine? Should I not get the vaccine? I've seen some posts saying among all industries, the construction industry is one of the lowest in upticks of vaccination rates. I think that's a little scary, and I would really encourage everybody to get the vaccine. I think Bechtel's doing a good job, as Anthony pointed out, in giving bonuses, bringing a contractor in, having vaccination clinics on site. I have another client that is making sure to give personal time off for people to go get vaccinated. As we return to the physical office environment or the physical workplace, we want to feel comfortable. We've been sort of spaced apart, we've been locked away from each other, and we want to feel comfortable. And I really think that getting vaccinated is one of the things that can help us all feel comfortable as we all start to come together and actually physically work next to each other. Let's see if we have any other comments here. Here's one, definitely going back to the office. I put a poll in the event page on LinkedIn for this live stream, and I asked the question, I already have seen the numbers about what employees want to do. In the poll I post for this event, I asked the question, what are you being told is going to happen? So what is your employer telling you is going to happen? And the overwhelming answer was they're telling us we have to go back to the office. And I will say most of my construction clients, that's what I'm seeing as well, is the management is saying, in the next 30 days, we want everybody to come back to the office. Or if you work on a job site, we want you to come back to the job site. So people like project engineers, we want you back on that job site. We know you've been working from home. We know you've been productive, but we want you back on that job site because we feel like we lose just a little bit when you're not there. People can't come in and ask you questions. If there's something that you need to look at out on the project, you're not just steps away. You're home. You're somewhere else. Inspections are the same thing. I saw somebody, I don't know if I can find this back up in the feed, but somebody mentioned using drones and cameras for inspections. And I've absolutely seen that increase in the construction industry in the last 15 months. And I think it's a great trend. Using drones for inspections, using cameras for inspections allows this remote inspection so we can kind of limit contact. There's also some products out there that allow people like project engineers to walk the job site and take 360-degree photos that then get imposed onto the construction drawings. So you can actually see what the progress is from anywhere at any time. And I think that the fact that we've adopted these during these tools during the pandemic is great. I hope that we continue to use them post-pandemic, whether we're back out at the job site or not, because they really, I think, increase productivity. It's been great for me to be able to watch my clients' progress from home, from my desk, from my computer, and check in on problems or challenges or safety concerns from my desk. I'm happy to drive out to the job site, and sometimes that needs to happen so we can, take a little closer look at things and design some solutions to challenges. But a lot of times, I think it's possible to view these things remotely and actually be a little more productive because I don't have to drive all over the place, and inspectors don't have to drive all over the place. So I think it'll be interesting to see how the industry adopts that and continues to use some of these things in the future. And again, if you have any experience with some of these technologies, drop them in the chat here. I'd love to hear from you. As we go back, I think that managers need to be aware of the fact that people are going to be concerned, no matter what their thoughts are on the pandemic and what their thoughts are on everything that's happened over the last 15 months. I think generally people are going to be concerned when we tell them they need to return to the office. They're going to be concerned because they've been working from home for 15 months. If they've been able to go to restaurants at all, the booths, the tables have been spaced 6 feet apart with empty seats left in between them. If they've been able to go to the office at all, the office has been reorganized in the same fashion, probably, to where they're spaced apart from each other. People that have gotten out in the last 15 months have grown used to walking into grocery stores, businesses, offices, and seeing plexiglass partitions, temperature check stations, hand sanitizing stations, reduced capacities in meeting spaces. That's become the norm. We've seen that and we've experienced that for long enough now, and many of us 15 months now, that's become the norm. So I think as managers, as employers, we need to be prepared for people to be uncomfortable when we tell them, okay, it's time to come back. And again, a lot of my clients are doing that. Here, I've got one that says, yes, I'm attending from the office right now. So, a lot of my clients are doing that. A lot of them have already done that. Most of my clients, I think, have said, starting June 1st, we want everybody back to your physical workplace, whether that is the office or the job site. We want you back there, and we want you to try that for a month, because again, we feel like we're losing some of the collaboration that we've been able to leverage in the past. We feel like maybe we're losing our corporate culture. Because nobody sees each other anymore, and we want to fix that. So most of my clients are saying, we want you to come back, we want you to try that for a month, but we're going to do two things. One, we're going to make some physical changes to the workplace, and I'm going to talk about those in a minute. And two, after you try it for a month, we will be open to discussing some sort of hybrid work model. And I think that that's something that's new just in the last couple of weeks, because I feel like most of the surveys and polls and interviews that we were seeing in the news a month ago really put employers saying, no, we want everybody back. Then we saw some additional polls with employees saying, I'd rather take a pay cut than go back to the office full time. And we're hearing about things like, we're going to have this mass resignation. People are just going to quit, and they're going to go find jobs that will give them the flexibility that they want. So I think that this is what we need to be really careful of in the construction industry, engineering, architecture, construction, all three, the entire AEC industry. We already suffer from a lack of good qualified people in a lot of areas. And in areas and departments where we have CAD operators, BIM, building information modeling operators, VDC employees, virtual design and construction employees that are doing modeling, working with some of the technology, using drones. These are all people who have skills that could be utilized somewhere other than construction. So I think we need to be a little careful in the AEC industry before we start mandating things that might scare our employees to some other industries. We really can't afford that to happen. So I guess my encouragement to employers and managers out there is understand that because of what we've all lived for the last 15 months, people are going to be uncomfortable with just a wholesale return to work. I really think that there's room for this hybrid model. And in my course, see if I can put this up here on the screen. Tables back to work. Yeah, we'll just pause it there. In my course, which is I think this ended up to be about 45 minutes long. I really spent some time going through and looking at what companies have done over the last 15 months that have remained open, what the current guidance is for the pandemic and the COVID situation, and what we think the future guidance is going to be. And then I really spent a lot of time talking to facility managers and large employers who have been out polling their employees to find out, all right, when I do have everybody come back, because we are going to have them come back, we really don't want everybody just to stay home full-time and work remotely. That's been discussed, and I think that's probably not the best option in the AEC industries, right? We do need people back at least part of the week. Let's see, get some comments here. So yeah, we do need people back at least part of the week, but I think that we're going to have to make changes to our physical workspaces to accommodate them. So I've talked to some employers. Yeah, you can see a picture here on the screen. I've talked to some employers that are kind of modeling what we've seen in some of the restaurants that have opened or been able to stay open. So at the reception areas, we've got plexiglass separating visitors from the reception staff. We've got signs up. Maybe still some temperature check stations, although I see in my area most of those going away. Hand sanitizing stations. I think are important in both offices and out on job sites. We really saw an increase of those hand sanitizing stations on our job sites in the last 15 months, and I think that needs to continue. We've sort of driven good hygiene practices into everybody, and really kind of improved the conditions, I think, on some of our job sites, and we need to continue that. Some other things that I think that we're going to see or need to see in the offices is that, if we're going to look at this hybrid model, I mean, one model is we just force everybody back into the office. And I know a lot of architecture firms have said, or originally said, this is what needs to happen. Their designers work in studio teams, and there's a lot of collaboration between them to to create the designs for these buildings and bridges and structures, and that's been really hard to maintain as they've all worked remotely. Yes, we can get on Zoom calls. Teams has been phenomenal. I've become a Teams expert in the last year because that's what most of my clients are using is Microsoft Teams to collaborate. It's a great tool, and it's worked well when everybody is remote. But now as I see people come back, and we're seeing meetings that are a little bit of a hybrid meeting where maybe 4 people are in a conference room in the office, and then 4 or 5 more people are all dialing in remotely. That experience has not actually gone real smooth. That experience has not been a great one, because we maybe haven't done what we need to do so that the remote people have the same level of collaboration and feel the same level of involvement as those in-person people. And so these are some of the changes that I think that we're going to need to make to our physical workplaces as we look at people coming back, and especially as we maybe adopt these hybrid models. So if you're looking at some of the hybrid models that I discuss in this course, involve maybe hot desking, or this concept of hoteling in the office, where you're going to schedule your time in the office. So you say maybe 3 days a week. Let's say I'm a project engineer, so 3 days a week, I'm going to go either into the office or into my job site office. I'm going to reserve this spot, and we've spaced the desks out so that we don't have overcrowding in there, and we're making people feel comfortable. Again, whether they're vaccinated or not, they just haven't been next to people for so long that I think we're going to need to make those changes. We're going to need to respace the desks, make sure that we don't have too many people in there all in the same day. So it's one of the things I go through in this course on LinkedIn Learning is this concept of hot desking or hoteling for your office space. And then besides that, I think that we need to look at some technology changes in our conference rooms and our huddle rooms to make sure, again, that we can bring those remote people in and have them feel the same level of connectivity and collaboration as the in-person people. So I'm going to take a break for just a minute. I'm going to look through the comments and see if I've got anything new here. Most of them kind of look like this. We're now back to the office. Definitely going back to the office. I think that's the trend. And again, I would love to hear from you if you get a chance in the comments, either now or later. I'd love to see what your offices are looking like as you're returning. Do they look the same? Are you going back in some sort of hybrid environment? Have they respaced your desks? What does it look like? Throw a couple of these up here. We're using Microsoft Teams here. With 10,000 people, good for video meetings. Again, I think the technology adoption during all of this, for the construction industry, maybe that's been a silver lining. We've been very slow on the uptake of technology, and I think the last 15 months has really accelerated that. I think that's a good thing. All right. So add this back here for just a minute. Let's see what I can do to enlarge this. I just wanted to show, again, this is my latest course on LinkedIn Learning. And some of the topics that I have in there, it was really originally meant for facility managers, office managers, people that are going to have to deal with all the employees returning to the physical workplace. But as we made it and as we went through it, I got comments that said, everybody should kind of watch this because you can learn a lot about what changes are being made and what changes are not being made. So if you kind of go through the table of contents, I don't know if you can see this, if it's big enough on the screen, but the topics that I have here are things like start by evaluating the new normal, being flexible. I think that that's one of the keys that we've really seen a lot of managers, CEOs, and employers talk about in the last few weeks is they're realizing they need to be flexible. 2 weeks ago or a month ago, they might have really thought, hey, we're just going to have everybody come back, period. We're gonna mandate this, and that's what's going to happen. But I think in the last couple of weeks, we're starting to see a bit of a change in those same employers saying, we're realizing now we need to be a little more flexible. We're realizing that every workplace is different, right? In construction, every job site is different. Maybe we have some options to increase our construction site office to accommodate more people without crowding them into that little trailer. Maybe we have some options where some of our project engineers can work from home 1 or 2 days a week while they're doing things like processing submittals and RFIs, and they can do it all remotely without needing to be at the job site. So we look at some of those options in the course, and then also look at, I've got this topic here of altering the built environment, options for creating new spaces, changes to spaces, and dealing with reduced room capacities due to distancing. So I know that in a lot of states, this physical distancing requirement is being lifted. We've seen that happen here in Arizona. We're supposedly going to see it happen in California on June 15th, right? All these distancing and room capacity restrictions have been lifted. But I'm going to tell you that's at a regulatory level. That's at a government level. Those restrictions were lifted here in my state I don't know, about a month ago, I think. And I haven't seen any of my clients, or really very many businesses, change their restrictions. So if I walk into my client's office, their training rooms that used to have capacities of 50 still have signs on the wall saying capacity's 10 right now, so that we can keep that distancing. And these are some of the things I talked about in the course. I also talk about managing sanitation in the workplace, and the need for additional hand washing stations, and the need to keep an eye on supplies and make sure that our hand sanitizing stations don't run out of hand sanitizer. That tends to upset people. I also tackle the whole topic of clean air, and whether or not, we get a lot of questions from people. Hey, should we be altering our mechanical systems in the building, our HVAC systems in the building, to add some of these additional filtration systems, or there's UV light systems that can be added right on the coils of your heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems to kill viruses as the air rotates through there. The problem when I looked into this and talked to some of the HVAC professionals, design professionals that I know, the problem that they pointed out is that the mechanical systems, the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems in most typical office buildings, where you've got the vent in the ceiling and the return in another corner of the room in the ceiling, they just don't have enough airflow, or a powerful enough airflow, to really scrub all the air in a room. So while that might be something that sounds good and makes people feel good to say, hey, we added this UV system onto our mechanical ventilating system, in reality, the HVAC professionals that I'm talking to are saying it really doesn't do what you think it's going to do. And so it's important for people to understand all these different options and weigh them out, because that, there's a portion of this that comes down to budget, right? None of us have unlimited resources. So as we bring people back to the office, we all have fixed budgets that we have to work with, no matter how large a company you work for. And it's really important to understand, what are my options for this budget, and where can I get the most bang for the buck? I've got two things I've got to consider. One is, what do I really need to do to get people back and make them feel safe, according to the science and the guidance that we're receiving from health departments. And the other is, what do I need to do to get them back and make them feel safe so that they're comfortable? So I'm taking, their beliefs, their thoughts, their feelings into account. And all this costs money, whether it's altering the workspace, getting more real estate so that you can have desks that are spaced further apart, coming up with some hot desking system where you only have half of your staff in the office at once and the rest is remote. All of this takes money, and it's important to understand what all your options are, so that you can apply your budget accordingly. So that's a lot of what I go through in this course. Again, the course is called Facilities Management: Returning to the Workplace Post-COVID on LinkedIn Learning. So if you get a chance, take a look at that. Love to hear any comments. I'm going to start to close out here, but I want to go to the comments and questions section here in the live stream. I've got several in here that talk about 360-degree cameras and drones. There was a few more comments in here about those. If you're in the AEC industry, if you're out on a construction project and you haven't looked at 360-degree cameras, I would really encourage you to do that. They're a really cool innovation. We spend, and I know my whole career, I've spent countless hours going into rooms and taking progress photos. And, I might go into a room and, a new hotel under construction or a hospital under construction, and walk into a space and take 20 or 30 pictures, just to make sure I document all the progress, in the construction that week or that day. And I go room to room and I do that. And then ultimately my pictures don't overlap and I miss something that I wanted. 360-degree cameras, if you haven't used them, take care of it. I can walk into the middle of the room. I can put that camera on a tripod in the middle of the room, hit a button, and I get an entire 360-degree spherical photo of the entire space. One click, walk into the next room, do it again. They really are a great way to document progress and even inspection, and allow a lot more remote collaboration than maybe we're used to 3, 4, 5 years ago in the construction industry. I've got another course on LinkedIn Learning, or kind of an on the job site series in LinkedIn Learning. And one of those episodes in there specifically deals with 360-degree cameras and shows you what you can do with some of those images and that imaging process. Very inexpensive, very easy to do. I think the drones are great too. So I've got a lot of my larger construction clients using drones to document job site progress, do surveys, overfly the project once a week or even once a day. Those are awesome as well. Really excited to see, innovative uses of drones on the projects. They're a little more expensive than the 360-degree cameras. They do different things, but they take a little more to get into. Typically, you've got to have a drone license, pilot's license, and some other things, and have to have a little more understanding. Well worth looking into. A lot of advantages. 360-degree cameras can give you a lot of the same advantages, and are super easy. You can get into it today. You can order a camera from lots of different places. So if you haven't checked that out, I would encourage you to do that. And I think Kamal's got a good comment. The positive side of the current pandemic is its incentive for change within the construction industry in so many aspects. Hard to think of a positive side of the pandemic, but I've said the same thing several times. If there is any silver lining here for the construction industry, it's that it has driven some much needed change, and I really hope we continue with that change and continue to adopt technologies and things that allow us to work a little more remotely, a little safer, and be a little more productive throughout the entire architecture, engineering, construction industries. That said, I want to wrap it up and thank you all for joining me today. Really appreciate you being here. Again, the comments section will stay live, and I keep an eye on those. Happy to chat with anybody in the comments section after this and going forward. last thought for managers and employers, be flexible. Please be flexible as we see some of the restrictions relaxed and we try and get people back to the physical workplace. I think that's the best advice I have is be flexible. Understand that no matter what, there's going to be a bit of trepidation, a bit of people feeling uncomfortable as they gather in spaces and in crowds with more people than they're used to gathering with over the last 15 months. So be flexible and be prepared to make changes. Be prepared to make concessions. We really don't want to see this mass resignation that we keep hearing about in the news. We don't want to see a big shifting of people to different industries. Be flexible, talk to your people, listen to your people, and try and do the best you can to accommodate everybody's needs and make them comfortable. Wrapping up, again, this is a live stream I'm going to be doing every week. It'll be same time, same day, every week. It'll be Wednesdays, 9 a.m. Pacific. Next week, I will be joined by another LinkedIn Learning instructor, Daniel Stanton, who has agreed to come talk to me about supply chain management. So supply chain management has suddenly, that's Daniel's topic, and Daniel's been talking about supply chain management for his entire career. But for a lot of us, supply chain management is something we've only recently been hearing in the news, and it's really doing things like disrupting prices and availability in the construction industry. And so we are really rapidly figuring out in the construction industry that we need to become supply chain managers and supply chain experts really fast if we want to keep our projects moving. So I'm excited to have Daniel join me next week. Again, Wednesday, 9 a.m. Pacific, as we talk about what supply chain management means for construction industry professionals. And then the following week, again, I'll be live from World of Concrete. Hope you can join me for both. With that, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next week.